So I know none of us have a crystal ball, but what would be your best prediction for what's to come in the real estate market?
I think now is a uniquely difficult time to predict, and especially in the Washington D.C. area with the impact of Doge. I will say that it's very very interest rate dependent. For obvious reasons, interest rates directly affect affordability. Interest rates go down significantly. I think demand in Washington and other places around the country will be really significant. I think the market will be strong. I think there was a statistic that said that I saw recently. I said I think that there were less homes sold sort of per capita in 2023 than sort of ever before, and then less even in 2024. So, the United States is sort of due for a bunch of volume in terms of transactions, but it's going to take interest rates lowering significantly, I think.
Well, it's something that just came to mind, the effect of tariffs and what that's going to look like on like new construction,
Yeah.
maybe like.
Well, tariffs just make the cost for, in my view, the consumer higher. And so I think that can be very, very challenging. It's hard to know on the tariff front what's going to really be imposed and what's not going to be imposed. So again, it makes it harder to predict things.
So what is your take on purchasing new construction versus an existing home?
It just depends on what you want. It depends on whether you want to buy something that you're going to have to renovate, that you're going to, where you may have to redo the bathrooms, the kitchen, etc. I think on the one hand, it can be a good idea to buy, an existing home and renovate to add value. On the other hand, if you don't have time, I have 3 kids, very busy. My wife works a lot. I work a lot. I don't want to spend my time and energy renovating something, so I can't imagine buying something and then having to renovate it. But others get joy out of that and have the time to do it. So I say look for the best opportunity. You know? So if you think something is cheap relative to what it should sell for, then that seems attractive to me. And I don't think it particularly matters whether it's new or whether it needs to be renovated. But just make sure it fits your particular appetite.
I feel like there's a common misconception out there about new construction amongst first-time home buyers, where they might think like, oh, this property's going to be perfect. It's brand new. There will be nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And how does that go?
Yeah, well, it's just there is no perfect property, right? I mean, these are human beings that put their, look, for people that develop new properties, I'd say 99% of them, put a lot of money and a lot of energy and time and a care and thought into the properties. But you're relying on people to do things.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's an issue here or an issue there. But the reality of it is whether you buy something new or you buy something that's older, part of owning a home is having to fix things from time to time.
Right.
And I think sometimes when people buy something new, they assume if it's a year later, a year and a half, 2 years later, they shouldn't have to do anything, and that's just not the way things are.
Yeah.
You got to maintain your property. You have to take care of things, and and so there's effort required no matter what you buy.
What is your take on millennials and Gen Zs struggling to purchase a home right now?
My take on it is that interest rates have made it very challenging the last few years for folks really of any age to buy a property. And so I think as rates come down, which they have consistently in the last 7 weeks, I think it'll be easier to buy something. I will say that there's been a real, as all the remote work stuff happened, there was a big move into suburban, homes that I think inflated values and caused a lot of demand and made it hard to buy. Personally think that some of that will sort of reverse, where folks are realizing like, hey, look, I need to be at the situs of my job, and if that's in a major city, that they'll have to find a way to be there, and that maybe the tertiary markets will weaken a little bit, and there might be some opportunity there. And there's certainly opportunity in most major cities to buy now, but I think it's all interest rates.
Yeah.
When rates go down, it'll be easier to buy.
Yeah, definitely. So we see a lot of doom and gloom in real estate sometimes. What is a perspective shift that young people should have right now?
That it's all temporary. That everything in life is quite temporary. I think the younger you are, and I've certainly been a victim of this myself, you think that whatever is here today will be here forever, and it just isn't the case. I'm in my late 40s now, and over time you realize that there are cycles that are bigger than each of us, of which we're just sort of bit players in, and so that the cycle that you're in at the moment will not be around forever.
Yeah.
And there are opportunities in cycles that people don't see or refuse to see because the rest of the herd isn't participating, and they don't think it's the in vogue thing to do. Mm-hmm. Usually the thing to do is the thing that isn't in vogue, but people don't really focus on that.
So what is your biggest advice for someone in their 20s or their 30s trying to buy real estate?
My biggest advice is find the deal. Don't do what the herd does. If everybody's buying one thing, then buy something else, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's an old saying in investing that when you sort of buy into something that everybody else is afraid of, you're probably going to do well over time. Mm. And so, I think if you look in the Washington, D.C. area, it's no secret the D.C. condo market's been soft. I think there's a big opportunity for buyers to buy condos at good prices. I think there's far less of an opportunity to buy suburban single-family homes at good prices. Yeah. That's just my view, and I think people make the mistake of sort of following everybody else, and it's seldom the right thing to do.